mainly by 1st Canadian Army. But we'll leave that aside for the moment and look at Market Garden. So the area inside the red rectangle on the left-hand side map is shown in detail on the right-hand side map. This is a sort of a close-up view of that rectangle. And you can see on the right-hand side map that down in the very left-hand corner is an area shaded in pink. That is the part of Belgium on this map that is under Allied control. And that is also essentially the frontier between Belgium and the Netherlands. So pretty much the rest of the map shows us Dutch territory and also a small bit of Germany up on the top right around the town of Cleve. So the object here for Market Garden is to use as a jumping off point this small part of Belgium which is under Allied control, and the main town where the Allies are building up there is called Leopoldsburg. And from Leopoldsburg, the Allies will project the advance of the 30th British Corps. And the aim of 30th British Corps, which is a ground-based force, is to drive across this map in a northeasterly direction. And as it goes, it's meant to link up with the Allied airborne drops, which are illustrated all across the map in the little pink ovals with the parachutes inside them. So in other words, 30th Corps has to drive northward toward Eindhoven, then it has to continue on in a northeasterly direction through Uden, and then off toward Nijmegen and Groesbeek in the upper right-hand part of the map, cross a series of rivers there, and then finally the prize is to reach all the way to Arnhem, where British airborne troops will have already, according to the plan, secured the bridge crossing. So essentially, the airborne forces go in advance. They capture the vital crossroads and river crossings on the map up to and including Arnhem. And then 30 Corps comes along and links up with them, building a supply route, and they drive a deep salient into this German-occupied territory in the Netherlands, finishing up with an advance on Arnhem, which would give them the crossing of the Rhine that Montgomery and Eisenhower are so badly needing. So that is the essence of the plan. And it may seem simple enough on paper, but in reality, not quite so. Because remember, all of this territory that the airborne troops are landing in is under German control. It's behind enemy lines. And the only way that the plan seems feasible is based on the assumption, which it turns out is a faulty assumption, that the Germans have no significant troop strength in this area. That the assumption is that most of the troops who are in the area are either falling back in disarray, or they are second or third rate troops. Older men, younger boys, no hardened, experienced, physically fit combat troops on the German side. But in fact, there were physically fit, hardened German troops on the capable of withstanding this operation or withstanding this assault. And they just happened to have been moved into the area because it was a quiet area, and they were sent there to rest and refit. But by coincidence, perhaps, they soon discover that they're under attack by Allied airborne forces, as well as the advance of 30 Corps, and the German forces in the area, the bulk of whom I think come from 9th and 10th SS divisions, are well prepared to fight against this operation. And although the Allies do manage to secure pretty much all of the crossings up to and including the one at Nijmegen, and although 30 Corps ultimately is able to advance from point to point to link up with these airborne forces, the British airborne troops, which landed around Arnhem and Oosterbeek in the very top of the map, simply could not hold on long enough against the counterattacks of the German SS forces in the area for 30 Corps to reach them. So, in other words, the operation was 90% successful in terms of capturing ground, but the last 10% that it really needed, the Arnhem crossing, it doesn't get. It's not possible. The Germans are too strong in the area, and the Allies are ultimately left with a deep salient jutting out from Leopoldsburg all the way up towards Arnhem, but not with Arnhem. And this means that the operation is ultimately a failure, because without the Rhine crossing at Arnhem, all of the resources which have been put into this effort don't achieve any other meaningful strategic outcome. The salient that they occupy isn't worth anything by itself without the Rhine crossing. And as a consequence, even though the operation is 90% successful, in strategic terms, it's 100% failure. No Rhine crossing, no success. And that has far-reaching implications for how the war is going to play out in 1944, because now it's not possible to invade Germany in the fall of 1944 without a Rhine crossing, a secure Rhine crossing, and that puts even more pressure on the 1st Canadian Army fighting in the Scheldt Estuary to open up the approaches to Antwerp, which it's finally able to do by the later part of November. And then Allied supply ships can start coming into Antwerp instead of having to go all the way over the Normandy beaches, through northern France, through Belgium, etc., etc. Antwerp brings them much closer to the front line. So if, for example, you were dealing with this operation in an essay question that had to do with strategy or leadership and decision making, one would have to weigh the pros and cons of taking the chance of throwing all of these troops into the operation on one hand, and the possibility that it could lead to a secure Rhine crossing in 1944. But on the other hand, it's a huge risk to take, and if the crossing isn't won, then the effort basically was for nothing, because it's simply expending more Allied troops and supplies, which were needed otherwise to continue on what we might have referred to as the broad front strategy. And in the end, because of the failure of this sort of narrow front type approach, the Allies are going to have to continue over the winter of 1944 and into early 1945, following something more like the broad front approach, but at least after November of 1944, supplies and reinforcements can come in through the port of Antwerp, and then they no longer have to go all the way across the Normandy beaches. Incidentally, if anybody's interested and hasn't seen it already, I would recommend taking a look at the 1977 film A Bridge Too Far, which does a pretty good job of dramatizing Cornelius Ryan's book of the same name, A Bridge Too Far, which is relatively detailed operational analysis of Operation Market Garden. And in the film, the 1977 film, you'll find all of the popular actors of those days, Robert Redford, Elliot Gould, Sean Connery, Michael Caine, Gene Hackman, and the list goes on and on of big name actors who played in this sort of epic, which is probably at least 3 hours long, and dramatizes both the advance of 30 Corps as well as the parachute landings, with of course the dramatic focal point being the failure to capture and hang on to the crossing at Arnhem in the face of significant counterattacks from local SS troops. Okay, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you.